Hey everyone, welcome to QC and Coffee, the podcast where we chat quality careers over quality coffee. I'm your host, Tiahti Young, and every episode we sit down with professionals from all walks of life to talk career paths, industry insights, and what it really takes to land a job and thrive in it. So whether you're job hunting, switching careers, or just here to learn something new, grab your coffee. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the QC and Coffee podcast, brought to you by LifeTech Staffing. We're not your typical recruiting firm. We connect quality people and quality work. I'm here with my co-host, Donald Spann. Don, you want to jump in and kick things off?
Yeah, I'd like to see you guys here again, episode 3. Very excited to learn about you, Kanesha, and Ty, as always. Happy to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. As Don mentioned, we are also joined today with the Director of Product Quality Vigilance at Johnson & Johnson, Miss Kanesha Jones. How are you?
I'm very well, Ty. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm trying to stay cool over here in Wisconsin. This is getting hot over here, a little bit sweaty. So,
Getting hot
yeah.
in New Jersey too. So
I don't know why y'all complaining living in a cold climate.
Okay, Don. Tell us where you are, Don.
I am in Mexico City, and I'm here because I'm in Chicago and born and raised, but I can't do another winter, not for a while. So I'm not complaining about the heat ever.
I got you. I got you. Well, before we dive into the career talk, Kanesha, what's in your cup today? What are you sipping on?
ooh, funny you ask. So I have my Yale cup, and inside of my cup is some sweet iced tea. I had
Okay.
2 cups of coffee today, so I've reached my limit. So I'm
Yes.
drinking iced tea.
Perfect. Don, what about you?
Got a cappuccino.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just that's been my drink of choice lately when I do drink coffee. So yeah, that's what I've got.
I have just some water. I also had a cup of coffee earlier, and I don't want to get too jittery, so I got to cap it at one. Cap it at one. Start sipping on some water. So that's what I'm doing.
Gotta cap it.
Got got to
Yeah.
stay normal for the interview, huh?
Exactly. Exactly. Perfect. Well, Kanesha, first question. Obviously, I've known you for a little bit, but the listeners don't know too much about you. One thing that I will say is that I know you've built an impressive career leading global quality systems across major pharma companies like Johnson & Johnson, Amneal, Otsuka. Can you walk us through your journey and how you found your way into the world of product quality vigilance?
That's a great question. So, and I love telling this story. So, when I was an undergraduate at Monmouth University, I actually wanted to go into forensics. So, I was thinking about a career in law enforcement. And right after graduation, I was kind of deciding what I wanted to do. So, I took a test to be a New Jersey state trooper. And while I was taking that test, I actually received an offer, a contract offer to work for Sharon Plow. At the time, Sharon Plow was working on their consent decree, which included their albuterol products and also the Claritin over-the-counter transition. So I decided to work there temporarily, was my goal, and ended up loving what I was doing. So I was hired there to work on their customer complaints, and they had a large volume of complaints. Kind of saw that as a temporary stopping ground. And throughout my 20 plus career, kind of pivoted away from customer complaints, customer feedback, did other things in quality, such as deviations, CAPAs, annual product reviews, those types of quality initiatives. But my heart just always led back to complaints. So I ended up doing complaints at Otsuka, which is where I think I met you, Ty, when I was at Otsuka. Left, go to Amneal, did some combination product work in terms of their quality management systems, and then ended up getting what I would consider a dream job at Johnson & Johnson, doing their complaint oversight. So I guess the long story short is that patient feedback and the heart of the patient and the voice of the patient has been something that I've always been passionate about. And so that kind of led me into quality work in pharmaceuticals, and I've stayed in pharmaceuticals ever since.
Yeah. I can hear the passion when I've communicated to you with you about your work. So that thank you so much for sharing. At Johnson & Johnson, like you mentioned, you're overseeing global complaints for non-combinational products. What are some of the most complex challenges you faced, managing global quality processes at that scale?
That's a great question. So I was hired by Johnson and Johnson to work on the global oversight of the COVID-19 vaccine, which we know at the time was a new vaccine, a new product that that the world wasn't really familiar with, right? So one of the most complex parts about my role is working on new product indications that are new and novice, and no one really knows how they work. And so getting to work for advanced therapy products, products like certain vaccines, products that are very new and innovative, and then creating not only a localized process for the North America region, which is the region that I'm from, but a global process that's going to work for every patient across the entire globe is always a challenge, right? To kind of think about how other regions are going to be impacted by some amazing products.
Mhm.
So long story short, just thinking outside of the US regulations and kind of thinking of the regulations in other regions and how we can create a system that doesn't maybe specifically deal with every regulation, but can work on a global scale.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
And I know throughout your career you worked with a variety of teams, and maybe the team that you're working on right now, I'm sure that they've made some serious improvements in complaint closures and compliance. What strategies or leadership principles helped you drive those kind of results?
Another phenomenal question. I think one of the things is I'm not a micromanager, right? So I try to instill trust and empower my team to make the complex decisions that are needed day to day, right? Recognizing that as a leader of such a large organization with such large volume of complaints that you cannot make every decision, right? So it's about leading your team and empowering them to make tough decisions, knowing when to escalate, providing them with the training and the procedures and the tools to make those decisions is what I try to focus on, right? Because there's challenges that come up all the time on a daily basis, right? But how, as a leader, can I empower my team to make the proper decisions and know when to come to me, but also feel
Mhm.
confident that they don't have to come to me for every decision that they make, right? I do empower them to make certain decisions without me. So my thoughts around that is, if in order to operate at a large global scale, you have to hire the right people, hire people that are smarter than you, right? Because I ain't the smartest person in the room. If I am, that's the problem. And empower them to make the types of decisions that are going to need to be made in order to ensure that our patients receive the best product possible.
I really love that approach. Oftentimes when a company's scaling, and you joined Johnson and Johnson, which clearly already at scale, but a lot of times when it comes to management and sort of delegations across team, you have to consider the business within the business, right? It's impossible for a certain amount of people to truly move as one unit unless there's units within units that are following a certain set of operating principles, have SOPs in place, but
Mhm.
ultimately are, through a series of managers that have not only the environment, but the capacity to make those decisions. So I applaud you for not taking the micromanager approach when you're dealing with a team at such a scale.
Yeah, it requires it like a lot of intentionality, right? You have to be intentional in creating safe spaces and the types of environments that you're empowering people to make decisions. Because one of the biggest challenges that any leader will tell you was that they get stuck because they have to make so many decisions, right? And when you look at the number of decisions that a director or a senior director may need to make, 9 out of 10 of them we probably shouldn't be making, right? So how do I empower my team, next day? Okay, guys, I made these decisions today, but tomorrow, I don't care what we eat for lunch, right? I'm using that as an example, right? But I think that how do you empower teams to make decisions and feel comfortable that they're making that they're making a good decision. It may not be the right decision. And I tell my team all the time, I'm wrong probably 60% of the time, right? But I lean into my experience, I lean into my knowledge, I make the best decision at the time. I walk that concept out, and typically there's no wrong answer, right? And how do you empower your teams to think like that? I think is key.
When you're working across global regions and regulatory expectations, how do you ensure alignment without slowing down innovation or resolution timelines?
That's a great question. It kind of leads into my previous response, right? You want to build a team of knowledgeable global leaders who are strong in the regulatory environments in their respective areas, right? So naturally, if you look at my career, I'm heavily in the US regulations, right? Whether
Mhm.
it's non-combination products, devices, or combination products, right? I understand the US regs, but other regions, I may only kind of know those regs, right?
Right.
So it requires me to lean into knowledgeable people in different regions,
Mhm.
understanding what my limitations are, making sure that I can have the, address those gaps in other regions, right? So region A, I'm not strong in. Who can
Mhm.
I hire and empower to be knowledgeable in that regard? And then basically try to do like this approach where you're throwing all of these regulation requirements on the board and really challenging yourself to say, well, why are we doing X? What region is requiring X? Which region is not requiring X? Do we really
Mhm.
need this, right? And part of globalization is asking yourself that question often, right? Is this a regional requirement? Is this a global requirement? Is it neither? Which we've seen
Mhm.
that, right? Sometimes the things are local, nuanced. But it really requires having the right people at the table and asking the right questions, which is, at what point do we believe that this requirement here is actually a global requirement, or can we handle some of this on a regional level? And sometimes that requires you throwing everything that you're doing out of the window and starting from scratch, right? Because you
Mhm.
don't want to come biased, right? You want to come
Right.
like, all right, open to the fact that this region is doing something differently than you're doing, and
Right.
you may have to modify that, right? So I think it requires you to have the right people at the table, recognize that you don't know all of regulations,
Mhm.
and really asking yourself. I ask my team this all the time. Show me where in the regulations does it say this? And if you
Mhm.
can't, then we can change it.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, the regulations don't require us to do a lot that we do, right? We
Mhm.
self-impose some things on ourselves. So to me, that's the art of making a process, taking a regional process or a local process and making it a global process, challenging what you're currently doing. And if that doesn't
Mhm.
work, throwing it all out and just starting from scratch with the right people at the table.
Yeah. I like that approach. What's one piece of advice you would give to someone stepping into a senior quality role or any role that aligns in the life sciences space for the first time, especially in an organization undergoing change or growth?
I think, when we think about the evolution of quality in pharmaceuticals, right, and probably biotechnology, right, you have to ask yourself, why are you in quality? Right? What is your why? My why is patient first, patient
Mm-hmm.
centric, right? And so if you understand what your why is, you're gonna have to make some tough decisions as you rise up, right? And some people are not comfortable making tough decisions, right? Decisions to throw away a batch that's expensive,
Mm-hmm.
decision to extend a clinical trial. There's so many different decisions that you have to make at the leadership level that are uncomfortable and maybe not popular. But if you remember what your why is, which is the patient, then you can lean into making some of those tough decisions. So my recommendation is understand your why that
Mm-hmm.
you want to do this and ask yourself, do you want to do this at a leadership scale? Because if you do, you're going to make some really uncomfortable decisions, and you have to lean into that level of uncomfortableness to protect the patient or to lean into your why. For me, my why is
Mm-hmm.
patient, right? So for me, because my why is patient, if you give me a job where I have to make a decision to reject a batch, I'm just using that as an example, and my why is patience, I have no problems throwing away a batch. I don't care how much that batch is worth because I
Mm-hmm.
understand my why. So it's making sure that you know why you want to do, why you want to lead at that level. What is your end game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be seen as a top 10 leader in that space, and for what reason? And once you answer those questions, and I challenge my team this: do you want to be a director? Do you want to be a manager? Some people think they do, and when they think about those whys, they're like, wait, I really don't. I really just want more money. I don't really want all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's starting with asking yourself some tough questions and then leaning into some training that's going to make you comfortable making some really tough decisions at the top level.
Yeah. I like that question a lot, and it seems like it's such a simple question. To be honest, my background, as you know, is as a recruiter, and a lot of my time I'm spending building conversations with candidates and vetting them for the right opportunities. And some of the most compelling answers I've received from them when I'm submitting them to the role or talking to them about an opportunity is literally asking that question: why this opportunity? Or why do you like quality? And I've received some amazing answers, which helped me to put together like the greatest submittal to a client to help sell them to the client and, ask, hey, can you take a moment to speak with this individual for this opportunity? They shared XYZ about quality. I think that you'd want to hear it. And these are individuals that truly understand the impact of the work that they're doing, how the product impacts the end user. And
Mm-hmm.
so although it does seem like a simple question, it's a very great question to understand someone's passion and what intrigues them about a particular opportunity or just the work that they're doing in general.
And I think that's how we first met, right? We were having a
Yes.
conversation, probably almost we're dating ourselves 10 years ago, possibly. And that was a question that you asked me, like, what was my why? And we had a long conversation about what I saw about quality even 10 years ago. And if I could go back to that conversation, I don't think I've changed a lot in terms of being very patient centric, right? And just really asking that question to say, like, what do you want with this role? Like, what is your goal? And I think that when you're dealing with someone at an analyst level or, what we call an entry level role, maybe their why isn't really important. But in terms of their specific question was senior leadership, those leadership roles, your why is critical.
Mm-hmm.
It's critical.
Yeah, I always share the story with my recruiting team, and I'm sure I shared this with Don as well about how you were able to educate me around quality, the importance of quality, break things down to such a granular level. Like I finally understood every single aspect of quality. So I appreciate that conversation. Just so everyone knows, it was about an hour and a half that we spoke. So I probably have to, send you some
Owe
money.
me some money. You owe me a consultancy.
Yes, I do. I definitely do. But it was a good conversation. And oh, go ahead, Don. Go ahead.
As sort of an outsider looking in that regard, I do think when it comes to something as important as quality, as far as a function, there's so many particulars, particularly in the life sciences space. There's so many particulars and so many specific that are part of sort of the final part of ultimately delivering a product to the customer.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do it right, I think the human condition needs a level of passion in what they're doing. If
Mm-hmm.
you're showing up for the job to do something that's that specific, that important, people tend to make mistakes. So how do you find someone that's willing to put in that extra effort to ensure that that level of quality is truly to the standard of an organization that's functioning well?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you need to determine why someone is working there and provide an environment in which they can work towards that end goal. And that's how you sort of provide an environment in which people are nourished enough to do a better job. And so I'm glad that you guys are sort of utilizing that mindset in terms of your approach to getting the work done.
Yeah, Don, and I just want to piggyback off of that. I think that's the amazing part about what I do, right? So my department name is Product Quality Vigilance. And the reason why we don't have complaints in our title is because complaints has such a negative connotation, right? Particularly in certain regions, right? A complainer doesn't seem like a positive thing, but it's quite the opposite, right? Because what we do is we're the voice of the patient, so we are the result. The feedback we receive is the result of putting quality into your product first, right? So when we have products that have low complaint volume, low amount of defects, that gives our satisfaction to our customers that we have a solid product and that we have integrated quality inside of our product. So us being that voice post commercialization, we're the voice that can go back to marketing, can go back to the designers, can go back to those other teams and say, look, our customers don't like the color of the box, right? And that seems to be trivial. But the power in that data that we can influence the designs, how things are shaped, is critical in what our customers are seeing as, are you really investing quality in your products? And that's exactly why my job is so great, because I get to see the voice of the patient and I get to be the person that brings that information to departments that would never get to see the voice of the patient, in the hopes that they take that information and they change how they think about designing either the current product or future products. I've done some things as simple as adding cleaning instructions on instructions for use, some things as complex as changing instructions or changing colors, right? And you think of it like, what's the big deal? To our customers, packaging designs, if you have arthritis, is a huge deal.
Yeah.
That could be a deal breaker for them not buying your product,
Exactly.
right? So how do you take that information and bring it back to let the customers know that our customers are demanding a product with quality in it, right? So that's
Mhm.
why I love being like in this post commercialization role. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And the reality is that companies at scale that are as mature as a Johnson and Johnson, those are the levers that you can influence at that point. It's
Yeah.
not about growth. It's
Yeah.
about efficiency. It's about optimization. And it's
Yep.
about, honestly having that edge over your competitors.
Correct.
And so, at that point, it's less about acquiring new markets outside of, potentially regions that are not already inhabited by your company or served by your company. It's okay, how do we connect with our patient that 1% more than our competitor might? And it's impossible to do that when you're standing 250,000 feet in the air in space. You have to get down to those granular individual patients that are giving feedback that ultimately could affect a lot of other people and making actual changes based off of that.
Absolutely.
I like that breakdown, Don. So Kanesha, you've led global quality complaint systems, built cross-functional partnerships, and driven major process improvements across some of the biggest industry names. What's next on the horizon for you? Are you looking to expand your influence in executive leadership, industry, or mentorship?
That's a great question. So I just recently returned to school. So I
Okay.
am a new candidate of the Yale Executive Masters of Public Health program, class of 2027. Really excited about that particular opportunity. I do a lot of community service work. So I'm active in many community-based organizations. So my goal is to take this education, this new education, my
Mhm.
experience in pharma, 20 plus years in pharma, and also my experience with the community to do more health equity initiatives, right? I really want to make sure that I could be the voice of my community, right? Making sure
Mhm.
that I'm the voice for the marginalized. I'm a product of Asbury Park. That's where I came from. I remember what it was like growing up without. And I think it's important for people as they climb to remember that there's people that may not have the power of the voice to speak up when things are wrong or or not fair. So I kind of want
Mhm.
to use this education. I definitely want to stay in pharmaceuticals, but I would love to kind of pivot and use this quality experience into maybe health equity initiatives. That's my goal.
Okay. Awesome. And congrats again
Thank you.
on Yale. That's awesome. I
I'm
saw the cup earlier too.
I'm
There we go.
excited. My Yale cup. Yeah, shout out. So I'm just excited about being able to pivot. And I think the timing of this is now, right? We have so
Mhm.
many different environmental policy driven decisions that need to be made that impact our communities, right? And I think
Mhm.
that we have to be the voice for people when they can't. I have this amazing career, and it would be selfish of me just to benefit from it from the back end and not be the voice for the voiceless.
That's the one thing I truly appreciate about you, Kanisha, is that you truly use your platform to help others. I know we talked about our conversation. You didn't have to give me that time, but I'm so appreciative of that time because it helped my career. I think we only had like two conversations,
It
but
was too. Yeah.
yeah, you took a moment of your time to just break things down to help me understand just the importance of quality. And it's impacted my career exponentially,
And
you
it's
know?
always been me, to your point. Like, and I look back to say, like, when did I start being like this? This was always me. So this
Yeah.
education is just gonna empower me to do more, be more me, right?
Mhm.
Which is me, right? Because that conversation was a long time ago, right?
Right, right.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting that I'm still the same.
Yeah.
That's sort of an encore question,
Ready.
and that is, you know, what would be your recommendation in terms of an approach for someone that's wanting to start out in this industry and maybe have a similar career to yourself?
I think that's a great question. Most of the people that I talk to in quality, they kind of fall into quality. They kind of fall into pharmaceuticals,
Mhm.
mostly because, when we go to undergrad, right? A lot of us with our bio majors are planning on going to medical school or whatever. That's what it was 20 years ago, right?
Mhm.
So I think that my recommendation is the same thing about being intentional as a leader. I think
Mhm.
what we need to do in pharma is do much more outreach to like the undergraduate community, the high schools, to kind of start to get them thinking about what this career could do for them. But someone that's trying to pivot into quality, typically it helps when they already have an experience in some other discipline in life science, right? So if they're in
Mhm.
the laboratory, that's awesome. If they're doing validation, engineering, that type of work, and that they can utilize that expertise to pivot into more of the decision making roles, the quality roles. That's typically what you see. So, what I
Mhm.
would recommend someone fresh out of college, particularly if they have like a science degree, go into the lab.
Okay.
Work, and I remember like 25 years ago, work overnight in the lab. Like, who wants to work overnight in the lab? You know how much experience you can get overnight in the lab?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and how do you tell someone, like, it seems like it's entry level now, but that experience is really gonna lead you into, a quality career, working in QC, working
Mhm.
in validation, working on a packaging line, working
Mhm.
in a production facility. It doesn't seem glamorous. Those type of roles pivot into quality careers.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense because my guess is that in order to truly understand and honestly in some cases foresee what could be an issue,
Mhm,
right? Is
mhm,
having proper context.
mhm,
And you can't learn that in the classroom. You need to learn it through experience sometimes. So that makes complete
Mhm.
sense.
and honestly, that's what's gonna be. I know there's a lot of rumbling about moving production back to the US. Let's move it back to the US. And it sounds like a great idea. But where's the talent? Because how did the people in the U.S. learn how to produce if we haven't been producing anything in 20
Yeah.
years, right?
Yeah.
Like, how did you learn how to? So now we have to take millions of people and teach them how to be producers. You know how much time that can take? And if we do that, you know how many quality problems we're gonna have from people who are
Yeah.
not used to producing? It sounds very like easy. Let's just move a plant and it's just gonna be great. But like, who knows how to? We don't know how to make stuff. We're not makers, right? That's not what. So it's, where do you get that on hand, that actual applicable experience if you don't work in a lab or work on a line or get that
Right.
experience to be able to now be a leader in quality?
Mhm.
We're gonna be giving out a whole lot of H-1B visas.
I mean, but that's but
That's probably
that's
what it's gonna
how it.
be.
But that's, and we don't want to have the
Yeah.
conversation of how we got there. But the reality is, it could take us 20 years to get to a place where we can learn how to produce an iPhone. We don't
Yeah.
know how to do it.
Yeah.
We're smart and capable, but like, how do you teach someone how to make an inhaler if they've never made it? You're just gonna make up one day and say you're gonna get this technology, you're gonna learn it. So it just, we haven't spent, the early 2000s learning how to produce. So the recommendation would be, if you have somebody out of college, get on the ground, learn the groundwork, learn how to actually be on a packaging line, learn how to
Mhm.
be on a manufacturing floor. And then 10 years from now, when you become a leader, you're going to have that high level capability to look back down and
Mhm.
remember what it was when you were down there.
Mhm.
You know, I think this relates more largely to we need to appreciate a few things. One, we're not a country anymore. We're part of a global system of commerce.
Exactly.
And just
Exactly.
like within your own team,
Yep.
whereas rather than having a bunch of generalists that don't really know anything, it's better to have specialists that are adept at their specialties and maximizing that skill set. And so that also applies region specific. There's certain regions in which the talent exists much more densely to do a certain type of work,
Yep.
and frankly, oftentimes more cost efficiently.
Yep.
And so it's like, okay, if you want to be a multinational company that is competing with other multinational companies, then it's best to utilize talent in regions where there's a specialty in a certain type of work. And
Right.
so to try to bring everything to a specific region, in our case, the US, and act like we're a silo that doesn't transact with the rest of the world, you know, I think that's detrimental.
And that, my friend, is globalization. That's how you globalize a system with that same logic, right? Like the talent that I have in certain regions is out of this world. And I love being from the US. I'm a proud American. But some other regions, man, they are phenomenal and brilliant at certain things. So I say to myself, why would I want to have a regionalized system, have my people over here not get to benefit from the amazing work that this region can do, and vice versa? It makes no sense. So once you step back and say, we're powerful when we all lean into what we're great at versus
Yeah.
being siloed,
Right.
it's power in being global. It's power in thinking globally. Regionalization is expensive because it requires more resources because you have silos. And you're not going to get the same level of talent you're going to get, to your point, when you look at it from a higher picture. You never will.
Yeah. And, frankly, Life Tech, uh, we're now a global company. We're in 3 different countries and counting, and we're remote. And it is our goal to sort of utilize the best resources we can in different areas to be as effective as well as efficient as possible. So, Kanisha, I think your wisdom that you put out today has been incredible.
Awesome. I'm glad I was able to assist. And Ty knows
Me
where to
too.
find me. This was fun.
Well, I'd like to thank you for your time, Kanesha, so much for chatting with us and sharing some insights around your career and what's next for you. Very, very excited about what is to come, and hope to have you join us again on a podcast in the future. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for the invite.
For sure. Awesome. Well, I will close it out with a few final notes in today's outro. Take care. That is a wrap on this episode of QC and Coffee. Huge thanks to our guests for sharing their journey and wisdom. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and share with someone who's navigating their own career path. We'll be back soon for more real stories and career insights. Until then, keep growing, keep your mindset strong, and your coffee close.